Hey y'all, and welcome to my channel. Let's talk selvages. If you've ever been to a fabric store or gotten some fabric cut, you may have heard the term selvage and wondered what exactly is it and why is it important. When you buy fabric in a fabric store, normally your fabric will come on a bolt like this and it's folded in half. These ends down here at the end are the selvages. It's basically the finished edge of the fabric when the fabric is woven in a factory. Depending on your selvages may look a little different. Like this is a cotton fabric. So one side, the print actually goes right to the edge, and these little holes are made by the machine that rolls the fabric onto a tube at the manufacturers, and then usually when it's sent to the actual fabric company, then it's double folded on a bolt. Then the other side, you'll see the printing stops, and then normally it has some kind of information about the designer, what store it came from, things like that. This piece here is a knit fabric, so it stretches, and this you'll have the same thing opposite the fold, which is this line right here. You'll come back and you'll have your selvages. Okay, sometimes on knits they do roll a little bit, but there's a selvage at one end, and then on the other side, this one actually has that same line. You'll have the selvage at the other side. Some fabrics, say like this stretch velvet, your selvages are basically the same on both sides. They look, this one just has the lines where it's been woven and then finished off. So these edges here will not unravel. They're actually finished and encased. Some selvages, say like this one, this is actually a woven fabric, which means that the printing or the stripe on this it's woven in, so it looks the same on both sides, versus say this one, which is printed, which the printing is only on the one side, you don't see it. So a woven fabric like this that has the design woven in, you'll see here is the selvage on this one, has the little threads. Now some of the selvages on fabrics are actually quite beautiful, and you can actually use that as your hem. So if I wanted to do, say make a skirt or something out of this, and I wanted kind of an unusual hem, instead of folding it up and sewing my hem in, I could actually leave that raw. It's not going to unravel, and it gives kind of a neat little, almost like a trim that I have sewn around the edge. Now the good thing to know about selvages is it's always straight. So when you're going to cut out a pattern, you'll hear things like grain line. Well, grain line is basically the grains of how the fabric is woven. And when you're cutting out something, especially like a garment, you want to make sure that your grain lines are straight. Therefore, when you wear your garment, your fabric is not shifting one way or the other. So when you go to cut out a pattern piece, you'll see an arrow like this. Usually on every pattern piece it says grain line, and it has it arrowed down. This grain line on your pattern piece must be perfectly parallel to your selvage. So if I was going to cut out this pattern piece, I would line up and then take my tape measure and measure from here to my edge and here to my edge to make sure that this piece is perfectly lined up. Now on something like this that's a plaid or a stripe, in a perfect world, it would also be straight on a stripe as well. The really good thing about doing the grain line is if you have any fabric with a stretch to it, and you're making, say, a t-shirt or something out of it, if you don't get your stretch completely straight, what you'll end up with is a lopsided t-shirt. And you see some of these in cheap, ready-to-wear manufacturers or clothing. You'll buy a t-shirt that's real cheap, and it'll look almost like it's hanging lopsided a little. You can almost tell that the grain of fabric goes at a slight diagonal. Well, it's a cheap clothing, and they didn't bother to make sure that their pattern pieces were straight on their fabric, so therefore it hangs a little bit weird. So these are just some tidbits about selvages. I hope that helps, and we will see you next time.